Alrighty. I hope you're all having a wonderful Saturday morning. I'm very excited to be here with you. The Recharge Conference is the third iteration that we're doing this. So if you missed the first two, you really missed some exciting time. The first two conferences were in person, and we enjoyed those very much. This year we had to pivot to switch over to a virtual conference. So we're glad that more people are able to join us. If you are not familiar with Recharge, we invite you to go and look at our web page, Recharge Conference, to go and look at our Repage Facebook group. We have created a public Facebook page so other people can access it. The private page was for the people who attended the last two conferences. So today we decided to do Recharge in the middle of this pandemic because there's so much going on and we just didn't know how to get through some of it. And it's been very difficult for a lot of people. People have died, people have lost jobs, they've lost relationships. But we wanted you to talk about the hope that's there. So there's a lot of hope left in the world. And so Recharge Conference is about hope and encouragement. So I'm glad that you're here. You'll hear from our speakers. I hope you've seen the schedule. You can go out and look at the bios on the website so you know who's talking to you. I'm seeing people pop in, so I'm smiling because I'm seeing some of these lovely faces that you just haven't been able to see because of the pandemic. We've all been isolated so much and quarantined so much that it's hard when you don't see people face to face. We are a people who need human touch. That's how we were created, human touch and human interaction. So it's lovely to see you join us today, see the smiling faces, see that you're willing to come out and join us. Please be aware of our sponsors. I'm not going to talk long. They told me I've got 3 minutes. I want to start out by thanking my planning committee, and we'll thank them again at the end. But I don't do this by myself. This is a volunteer effort, and my planning committee said to me after the first year when I tried to do it by myself, you're not alone in this world. You don't have to do it by yourself. We are here. And so I want the attendees to know that you are not alone by yourself, that we are here to share information from people who we trust their information. We trust their credentials. So they are credentialed people who will be speaking to you. And that is the good thing. Our only mission is to share information that's from reliable sources. So sit back, join in, raise your hand when you got, the chat questions, put your questions in when they do so, and we'll go from there. And I think I've spoken. All right, let's welcome Miss Ingra Green, who's going to give us an introduction to what we're talking about in today's Recharge Conference. Ms. Green, take it away.
Well, good morning, greetings and salutations to everyone this morning. I am super excited to be here. I already feel like I'm being recharged, just even after that prayer. So thank you, Lady Patricia, for that. It was awesome. I am here, I'm Ingra, and I intend to create receptive insight today. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly does that mean, create receptive insight? Basically, what I want to do today is to lay a good foundation for why we are here. So it's quite befitting that I am the introductory speaker because it so happens that creating receptive insight is my God-given purpose. I am here to help people receive whatever it is that God has for them, whatever walk of life they're in, whatever stage, wherever they are in their journey. So for this particular conference, I hope to accomplish just that. I want to start with the title of the conference first. So it's Recharged: Power from the Pandemic, How Technology Makes a Difference. But I really want to focus on the part that says power from the pandemic. Because if you think about it, it seems kind of strange sometimes that we can find something positive out of something that's negative. And the reality is, this pandemic has been bittersweet, mostly bitter for most people around the world. There's been so much loss. There's been loss of lives. There's been loss of livelihood, loss of relationships. There's been a lot of stress behind just being quarantined and just all the isolation. And for that, we are deeply sorrowful, because that is a real thing for many people. But thank God, we are able to see that there is also, we'll call it the sweet side, sticking with the term bittersweet. And so that speaks to, as Sharon already started and alluded to, the hope that comes out of something that can be so dismal and so destructive. What we're going to do is to talk about what happens, because I want to optimize. You'll hear me use that word optimize or maximize, because here's the thing. We receive a lot of information. Like, we are bombarded daily with information, with and without our permission. Sometimes we process and use it, and sometimes we don't. So my goal is to make sure that the information you receive today, because it's going to be some powerful and transformative information, that when you use it or when you receive it, you will actually be more likely to use it. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to help you to be receptive by giving you a peek at what happens within your own brain. It's some amazing stuff. The brain, our bodies, first of all, are completely fascinating. God is incredible, as we all know. But I want to put our brain on blast real quick so that you can make sure you receive maximally what you need from this conference. So let's talk about immunity. I want to talk about immunity to change. Because when we're receiving information, there's something interesting that begins to happen with us that, in a sense, blocks us. And it's kind of like there's a conundrum, and I'm sure many of you have either heard it or you've experienced it. And it's like, I know what I should do. I know what's good for me to do, like receive this information to be able to move forward with greater ease into the future so that I'm not left behind. I know that's a good thing to do, but for some reason, I just don't do it. Okay. So the term is called immunity to change. I'll give a little bit of information about it because it is a real theory that came from two psychologists in Harvard, out of Harvard, Robert Kegan and Lisa Lahey. And they did like 30 years of behavioral observations, and they found the answer to why we don't always do what we know we should do, especially when it has to do with change. So again, talking about immunity to change, let's just talk about immunity, period. Well, we all know, because we're very familiar with immunity right now, that biologically, just in our bodies, immunity is our body's way of resisting any kind of threat. So, of course, right now, immunity is a big deal. We are in this war against the coronavirus. So we are boosting up our immune systems so that we have a better chance of staying healthy, living longer. So we're taking our vitamin C's, we're taking the vitamin D, the elderberry, the getting out into the sun. We're doing all these things that we know are good things to do to keep our immunity strong, right? Well, that's because our body tries to stay in this stable place called homeostasis. Now, what I'll tell you is I'm a little bit of a nerd. So I love especially the neurosciences. So the things that have to do with the brain. So I'm going to share. I'm not going to go deep into it because that's just really not my thing to go deep. But I do want to, again, just kind of give you a peek at what's been working against you so that you will know how to overcome, first of all, to recognize it and then to overcome it. So again, if we talk about this homeostasis that happens just in our natural bodies, there's also this immunity that happens, and this desire for homeostasis that happens in our brain. So our brain is constantly trying to keep us in this good place, okay? So when change comes to us, which is the entrance of new information, if it doesn't have to do with our survival as a human, our brain resists the change initially. It sets up an immunity against the change because energy is required for change. So here's what this looks like. In our brains, literally, there are these grooves that happen in our brain. Anytime you're learning something new, from the repetition, a real groove is created in our brain. We've all seen pictures of the brains and it's got the grooves and things. Well, those are there for a reason. That takes energy to sustain us. And so when new information gets introduced to us, our brain says, first of all, is this a threat to our energy reserve here? Because if this entrance of change or this new information is not required for us to stay alive and to keep the human race going, then we're going to toss it out. This is what your brain does. Your brain works against you. What is the saying? It be your own people. It's your own brain that is working against you. But the good thing is we are aware of it. So let's do this. I want to do a little sample of who all's here just to make sure that I am talking to the right people, okay? So by a show of hands, and here on the Zoom at the bottom, there is a section or little tab icon there called reactions. So you can click there to raise your hand. So I'm gonna ask you 2 questions and I want you to raise your hands. Okay, so the first one, and again, this has to do with identifying or showing you the resistance or the immunity that your brain puts up against change when new information is introduced. So first thing, how many of you have been in the past year to several either conferences, trainings, and or church services? Raise your hand, using the reactions at the bottom. Okay, yeah, okay, I see the hands going up. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. So I know I am talking to the right people. Here's the second question. How many, you can put your hands down because we'll put them up again. How many of you, after attending those amazing conferences, trainings, or church services, how many of you forgot the information about a week or so after? I'll put my hand up because yes, that is me too. And I'm pretty sure that is just about everyone because your brain did that to you or for you. In the brain's interest, you can put your hands down, in the brain's interest, again, of conserving energy, it says, if this information is not necessary to stay alive, I'm going to let them forget it. Think about it. And all this time, you probably thought you were just being forgetful. And that was not the case. So it's easier for the brain to just toss new information rather than process it. So I want to, again, just make you aware, because how many of you back, and you don't have to raise your hands for this, but I'll just bring this up. Back in the 1980s, there was a cartoon, G.I. Joe had a cartoon. And at the end of every episode of the cartoon, G.I. Joe would say, "Now you know, and knowing's half the battle." So with regard to this sneaky resistance, this sneaky immunity that your brain puts up against you making change and moving forward, especially with this information, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. So as we keep going and moving forward, what are some things that we can do to overcome this? Well, one of the biggest pieces has to do with allowing yourself the grace and the space to process the information. Here's the thing. You've probably all heard the adage that we are our own either harshest or worst or biggest critic. And that can be very true for most of us, just about everyone. And where that comes into play here is when new information gets introduced, we have a tendency to feel this pressure. We feel this pressure like, I gotta get it. I need to learn this. I've got to be able to do this. I really need this. And so some of you may even be feeling some of that pressure today. There's this great information, and I want to make sure that I am ready to catapult into the future. So I'm going to put this pressure. I've got to get it. I'm going to take all the notes, and doggone it, I'm going to make this happen. So now that you know that your brain has been working against you, you don't need to put this pressure on yourself, because there's this patience with the processing of the information that needs to happen. Again, this is something that will help you to overcome the obstacle either of the stress or the resistance. So here's the thing. There are really, about four. It depends on, there's different schools of thought. There's about 4 steps in processing change. Again, and let me go back just a little bit. So self-care has been another one of the things that we have learned during this pandemic. You are, I'm sure, have seen a lot of people realize that, gosh, we got to slow down and take care of ourselves. Well, this patience in processing information even has to do also with us taking care of ourselves. Think about it. We are 3-part beings. We are body, soul, and spirit. So there is a self-care element that comes with every facet of who we were created to be. Being patient with ourselves, giving ourselves the grace, like I said, and the space to process this new information that our brain is initially trying to put up this resistance against, that is a form of self-care, okay? So again, moving on to the 4 steps of processing. Step 1 is typically denial. Now, I will go out on a limb and say that nobody is here under duress. Nobody is here with a gun pointing at them and saying, you better do this, okay? So we'll just assume that denial is like, we're past that in processing. Nobody's dealing with denial. We all know that we need some change here. That's why we're here, right? Got it. That's why I'm here. Even though I'm introducing this to you, I'm here to receive information also. Sharon talked earlier about being a lifelong learner, and that is exactly what I am. I love learning. So anyway, moving right along. The next step is typically the resistance. And we just spent some time talking about that. And the reason why I really pulled out the resistance piece of processing change and zeroed in on it is because that's the sneakiest piece in processing change that most of us are not aware of. But again, like G.I. Joe already told you, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. So you're halfway there. We're going to go a little bit further in being successful in processing change. Because again, we are laying the foundation. There is transformative information that's going to be shared with you today. And again, we receive a lot. But with this conference, we want to make sure you maximize your receptivity for this information and also increase your chances that you'll actually do something with it, right? We don't want to just waste time. This is beneficial. We want to make sure we get everything out of it. The next step, the third step in processing change is exploration. This is a favorite of mine because it behooves us to allow ourselves to explore. That's a big piece of processing. And it's a piece that I don't think we take enough time doing because we're in a rush. We're always in a hurry and we're always trying to get things done, get them done quickly. But in self-care and in this patient processing, allow yourself time to explore. Even as you're receiving information from these sessions, allow yourself to even just think about and explore, because you're going to be introduced to some information. You're not going to get the sum total of every topic. There is still some exploration to be done as you pursue this information that's going to change and enhance your life. Not just your life, but everyone has a circle of influence. So as you increase in knowledge, your circle should be increasing in knowledge. So give yourself the chance to explore, because it not only benefits you, but it benefits others, okay? The final piece in processing is the commitment or the execution. So again, we all have the good intentions to take the information, just like we've already admitted from every other conference, training, or church service. We all intend to take the information and put it to good use. But in this last piece, this commitment, what I would like for you to do is at some point, there's going to be a break. We have these things right here called smartphones, right? It's basically, we have computers in our hands now. They have all kinds of applications for alerts and reminders and tasks. Be intentional. This has to do with the commitment part of processing change or processing information. Be intentional and commit to put on your smartphone a reminder sometime this week to come back and review the information from this conference. The other thing is, repetition is key in our brains. So we hear information and we are able to retain so much. If we read it, we can retain so much. If we take notes, we increase our retention. And then if we go back and review all of that, we begin to solidify it and it goes deeper into our memory, okay? So when processing change, that final piece is commit to do it. Be intentional about going back and reviewing this amazing information. One other key that I want to share with you that helps with processing change is visualization. As I stated before, we are three-part beings: body, soul, and spirit. And so within our body and our soul, that's our brain, our physical body, then our soul, our mind, will, and emotions, but also even within our spirit. And some people think that spirit only has to do with church. No, spirit is not just about church. Spirit is that part of us, that essence of us, that's where I call there's a space for the supernatural. There's the God space there within our spirit. Well, when it comes to processing change, that part comes into play and can benefit us also through our imagination. Now, some people may think that imagination is just in our mind, but it is also a part of our spirit. What I want to do is I want to help you with a quick visualization, because you're pulling in, again, another part of you to help with the processing of this information so that you can overcome the resistance and maximize your intentionality when you apply it. Okay. So you need to see it and believe it. It increases your chances. So, what I want everyone to do is to close your eyes. Close your eyes. This is going to be quick, but I believe this is going to be very effective. And I want you to visualize a mountain, the highest mountain that you have ever seen. If you've ever been to the mountains, imagine a mountain. I stayed in Colorado for a little while, so it's very easy for me. Plus, using my imagination to envision mountains is a happy place for me. Some of you as adults have not used your imagination in a very long time. So we're going to take your imagination out and shake off the dust today and use it, okay? So imagine this mountain, this huge hulk of a mountain, and you're looking up at it. But I want you to shift in perspective, because now imagine yourself standing on the top of this mountain, right at the apex. You may even envision clouds at your feet. That's how high up you are. But you are on top of this mountain. You may feel wind blowing. You may see birds flying by. You may see the tops of other mountains in the distance as you look out across the sky. Now, I want you to envision that mountain is change, because change is huge. Change can be hard to climb. Getting over change or accomplishing change can be such a task that we think it's insurmountable. But if you can envision yourself standing on top of it, you increase the chances of conquering it. So let's open our eyes. I believe that now you are ready to be recharged, and you are fully receptive for the insight that's about to be imparted to you. Enjoy this conference and get everything you can out of it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Sharon.